Good morning, rockers, and welcome to Rock Painting Workshops. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm creating a rock for a water saving project that's in my community. So I've decided to do a tap. Is that what you call it in your country? I don't know. We call it a tap here in Australia, a water tap. And I've decided to create that with a couple of drops of water coming out of it. So I'm still going to give it that cartoonish look that I do. I'm not trying to make it look realistic. So I thought I might share this one with you just so you can see how you can use the exact same techniques that you would use if you're painting water drops or drawing them with your pencils, and sort of make it just look that little bit more cartoonish that go with the style of rocks that I share with you. So first of all, I'm just doing a thin even layer of paint all across, and I've just decided, because taps are basically metal or silver, that I'll go with the grey colour for the taps. I am going to paint all the water white, because I'm going to do the water drops and the water coming out in black and white. So you can see how I do it. So you can see I'm doing a nice thin even layer in white. Okay, I've just sort of pulled out greys and blues and whites, and think about the background. I think I'm gonna go with the coral. I had to have a bit of a think about it and make sure it's working. I had to look for it to get it all flowing, making sure it was all shaken. Don't you just want to say shook up? Yeah, I'm shaken up. So here we go. I'm just going to pop in the coral as my background. You can see I'm not getting fussy. I'm doing that nice thin layer and just going all over the rock. Okay, I'm going to come around. And you could have done the background first. It doesn't really matter. I thought I was going to go with no background to start with. And that's why I probably didn't. But once I put the grey and the water in, I could see I just wanted just that little bit more pop of colour in the rock that I'm painting. Yeah, so it's a little project in my community where they're just talking about different issues on how to save water, and I just thought I'd put this one as part of the project of turn off running taps and fix dripping taps, things like that. So I'm going to pop this rock in with that area and the display. Okay, I'll just go around the last few of those bubbles. Okay, that's one layer. And here, when I come back, I've got my water and I've got my Posca red, and I'm going to do the shading. But what I did do while I was off camera, I did do another thin even layer of colour. Okay, so the grey and the white, I didn't bother with the pink. I have gone over it and done one more layer. So what you can see, the white paint drops, you can see that they're 2 layers. You can see that they're really nice and opaque. A lot of people are having trouble getting the white coverage. Sometimes they're using like poster paints or just some paints that don't have quite as good pigment. If I'm using my paint and brushes, because I do exactly the same technique, if I'm using my paints, and I use that Americana brand by Deco Art, but there's lots of great paints out there. But if your white paint is not giving you this kind of coverage in 2 thin even layers, then you might need to address the brand that you're using. So I'm just going to keep shading there, and by shading I just wet my paintbrush. I dry it on the microfiber cloth at the top of my mat. I dip it on top of my paint pen like that, and I just smush that around on my rock. If it's too wet, I'll just keep wiping it onto the microfiber like that, and come back to smushing it. Yeah, when I really thought about it, I just didn't really know how I could share this as a tutorial. I had no idea, but I always film myself anyway, so I decided, what the heck, I'll just go for it so you can sort of see what I get up to. I'm going to add a little bit of blue into the water. I don't want it to look too dark, so I'm just really wetting that down, washing it out with some extra water. Just want to add a touch of colour to it. Okay. Look, my black pen actually is working. The angle that you hold the pen at depends on how well it comes out, and just to get a good angle for the camera, it's not a good angle for using on the rock. So I'm just going to use Bert to prop up my rock sometimes, or I lean my hand on it, on Bert as well. And I'm going to go around all the image, so all of the water I'm going to go around. Okay. I'm just going to start here on the water, and I'm going to create some shadow. So I've gotten the water, dipped it on, touched it onto the top of my paint pen, and I'm creating some shadow onto the bottom right on the outside there, and in the water drop I'm going the inside top left. You want it to be darker to the left of the shading, you know what I mean? And then see how I'm just watering it down so it becomes a lot more grey across the middle, so it's darker to the left and it's shading across into the grey, then into the white. While it's still wet, I'm going to come up with my white on the other side, so I'm going to do white here, and the black is still wet, so when where the black and the white meet right here, they will just blend into each other. And I've just adding those two little lines of highlight just gives that reflection on the water. And I'm kind of making this up as I go along. That's why I didn't really know how I was going to present it. So I'm just touching in the darker, black to the left side and on the outer right side. And then that creates the shadow where it needs to go. And I really think, this is coming off as a good sort of cartoonish look that makes the water drops work in well with this painting style that I'm using on the tap. So I'll just use the same technique of the water dripping out of the tap. I'm going darker to the left there, and I'm going to shade that down and across into the white, giving it more of a grey where the two blend. On the outer right, casting some shadow, add a bit of the dark black, sorry. Might be a bit too much, but we'll see. Okay. We can always just come back in there with some more white. So I just felt that I did a little bit too much of the black outer shadow, but you can just keep swapping back and forth with your black and white to see how that goes. Just making that little bit whiter on the bottom right area. Okay. Get that pen working, and just create some black outline there, give it a bit of definition. So you always stop for a couple of seconds and just have a look at it, stop and look and see how you're going with it. And like I said, it's exactly the same kind of technique as if you were drawing the water drops and shading it out with pencils and things like that, and just making it a little bit more cartoony. to get that more little bit of white I'm adding there onto that wet black, so it has that grey coming across. And I'm just thinning down those white reflections and adding a little bit more white. Oh, that might be too much now. Doesn't matter if it's too much, you always just come back and grab your black and go back over it. But I'll decide that in a minute. Always important to just stop and have a look, see where you're going with it, what bits you like and don't like. They're easy enough to change as you're creating. They were just a little bit too white for me. Alright, let's just start going around the outline of the tap, and that'll just give us a little bit more of an idea with the water drops to see if we stay that way or change it a little bit. Okay. So I suppose it's just a video really of my thinking process. Sort of just making it up as I go around, and yeah, and I think that's the only reason I wasn't going to share it, because I'm thinking too much as I go. Usually I sort of know the direction I'm going, but this one I'm just making it up as I go along. But this is how I paint my canvases anyway, so I just sort of think, yeah, that's not right, that's right, yeah, I'm happy with that, I'm not happy. So you're all part of the thinking process today. Just adding in a little bit of black into some shadowy areas. That's usually just sort of colour the corner sections in a little bit of black, and it gives it a little bit more depth. Just might thicken up that line there. Okay. We'll even add some highlights onto the tap, because we're showing through the water droplets a few highlights. So of course the metal in the tap would also have highlights. Here what I'm going to quickly do is just show you that water drop, that the principle of how I'm acting with it, and that's I go around and create the edge, and then I'm just smushing some black paint across from the top left, and see I'm thinning it as I go, so it's darker to the left and it's getting quite watered down the further I go. So your white is going to be in the opposite direction, and then I'm going to smush that up into the black, so you can see the black's still wet, so that it's really blending nicely together, and it will just create that grey through the middle area there. So where the black and white meet, we'll get that grey sort of smush in the middle. There we go. Just sort of fix up a little bit too much white there, but we're creating a little bit of darker shadow to the bottom right as well. But you can see I'm turning it around to make it suit me, but there you go, the shadows to the bottom right. Because my sun is, my light is coming down from the top left. It's shining down that way. I'll just keep smushing that until I'm happy with it. just define that outline. This is just roughly the same technique that I used, and then you want to add in some highlights where that light's just bouncing off the top of the water drop. So this is just roughly how I do it, or how I did it for this one. Like I said, using the same drawing techniques and just making a cartoon version. So I can't wait to see if you give this one a try. It's pretty easy. And there they are together. And I'll see you over at Reef Rocks Free Workshops, our Facebook group. And I'd love to see your taps and your water drops.